Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Just quoted with Sarthak. Today we are back with the part 2 of the video with Shivi. She is working as a product manager at LinkedIn Learning. In this special series we discuss about tech, product, career and life, and we are on to our discussion about product management. We will be deep diving into that. What's the interview experience looks like, what are the different resources she used to prepare, and since she is a very phenomenal content creator and has a lot of thousands of followers across globe, so we will be deep diving on into that as well, like how content creation space according to her, what's the importance of education, growth and upskilling during this pandemic times, and how is she able to achieve her dreams apart from her office hours and everything. So stay tuned for that till the end of this video to learn all about LinkedIn interview and content creation space. And I hope you will enjoy this video. And if you have not even subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon near that so that you get a notification every time I put a video. And moving with the skills part, I was just about to ask the same question. What are the soft skills and hard skills that are mandatory for the PM or that are like a good to have or must to have for PM? But I think you have covered mostly. I'm sure if you want to include any of the skills that can be like a good to have or must to have for the PM.
Yeah, and I can share a post on that I talked about too. So I think the must-haves, like I mentioned, are like execution, communication skills, leadership skills through influence, not so much through direct authority, right? And then ability to prioritize, and then defining and measuring success. I consider nice to have skills are like ability to really know what's the right problem to solve. I think the caveat there is when you're an early stage PM, like a junior PM, that is a nice to have skill. But once you're becoming more and more senior, like a director and VP of product or CPO, that is a really important skill. That becomes your must have. Right. But you need to be on the job to be able to train that level, that sense of, that product thinking, that level of rigorous in your product sense. And then just like knowing what great design looks like, just have a taste, like Steve Jobs, just one of the visionary that everyone looked up to, right? And then being data informed and having this analytical rigor to understand a lot of stuff. This is somewhere between like a must-have and nice-to-have, depending on the product that you work on. But again, this can also be learned as you're on the job, seeing the data, understanding it, taking some training, on the job to see it. Being able to define product strategy with a gray vision, tell a great story, building a narrative around it, driving visibility around it. Those are all nice to have skills. I think it's nice to have for early PM. It's more and more important as you wanted to become like a director of PM or VP of PM. Those are becoming a must have. One thing I would say that always helps, and it's not exactly a skill that people can really screen you for, but it's really going to make you a good PM, like differentiated you from a great PM to a good PM, is what I consider an ownership mindset. Meaning that you kind of just see it as your own product, even though you're being employed by someone else, right? Like put it as if you are the founder of the product, like you will go above and beyond to do the right thing for the product, to do all the due diligence it needed. So this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, ownership mindset, I think it's what differentiates like a good PM or a mediocre PM. From differentiate a great PM from a mediocre or good PM, right? And then something nice to have, more so for if you are a startup and like really early stage startup that you're really, crunch on resources. I think, knowing like the technical ins and outs could help. Like knowing how to write codes could help. I think again it depends. Like if you work on like let's say a very technical PM, like an API PM or platform PM, data PM, sometimes it is helpful and it could be a must-have for you to like have that CS chop, right? Like to understand the ins and outs of how things work. But majority of the time, what PM can bring to the table isn't the technical side. You already have the engineers to solve those problems, but just understanding it can still build your credibility, right? Working with engineers and getting things shipped. I think if you know how to create wireframes and like mock up beautiful designs,
Right.
that's helpful too. I consider
Yeah.
that as a nice to have, like a bonus skill.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
the skill set for a PM lies into a fuzzy line, so that there are a couple of skills that are dependent on the job role, that a level of experience, and the role that you are targeting specifically, that becomes like that oscillates between nice to haves and must to haves accordingly. But yeah,
Mhm.
overall, I think it's a pretty exhaustive list of skill sets that are there to learn on the job or before the job, as and when required. But yeah, covers all of it. And I think your post will be great to take on the resources and how to get on the skills and like learn, get your expertise on it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving forward, like if I have to ask what kind of questions are typically asked in PM interviews, what does the PM interview look like what kind of questions are expected, and how are like how a candidate is expected to answer them, what's the right strategy on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think also depending on the company, I see that for startup, a lot more behavioral interviews are being asked, like, right? Like, things like, what is your biggest achievement?
Mm-hmm.
What was the last time that you failed and what did you learn from that experience? How did you
Mm-hmm.
make decisions from like very ambiguous data? What was something that you shipped that you're proud of or not so proud of? And what did you learn from that? So a lot of smaller companies tend to ask behavioral question more. But if you are applying for like bigger tech companies, a lot of them have very structured interview process, and they might have 4 or 5 different pillars that assess different skills. So the
Mm-hmm.
first pillar, very common, could be product sense or product design. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the questions that they will ask you about. How would you design, let's say, Uber for kids or a bookshelf for an elderly? So like design questions that aim to ask you and test how you approach, a design prompt in a PN way. So check out the circles framework, and the key here is really, having the right sense to ask the right question and lay out a framework and really
Mm-hmm.
approach it in a methodological way. And then, so that's the first pillar, product design. I think the second pillar is something around like product strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So more question like, why does Amazon acquire Whole Foods? Or if you are CEO or product of Nike or Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're running into a growth stop, kind of stop and growth, right? Like Zoom recently have a lot of challenges after COVID to
Mm-hmm.
catch up with the growth. So if you were PM there, like what would you design to like 10x their growth trajectory in the next 3 to 5 years?
Correct.
The key here is like not so much anchor around 10x and how you do the math to like sum it up to 10x
Mm-hmm.
in that next 3 to 5 year horizon. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's more testing your analytical rigor of understanding, how you approach that problem. And then
Mm-hmm.
also because it's 10x, so it's almost testing your creativity, your
Exactly.
moonshot of coming
Mm-hmm.
up with like great ideas that can actually disrupt the industry and create a lot
Mm-hmm.
more better experience, right? And then the third pillar I would say is around like metrics understanding. So a lot of it could be, understanding how to evaluate success. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say you launch, let's say, the reaction feature on Facebook. That's a common one, right? Before
Mm-hmm.
you only have like thumbs up as likes, and now you have
Mm-hmm.
like 4, 5, 6 different emojis. How do you
Correct.
know if it's successful? Like, how would you evaluate it? What would be your
Mm-hmm.
framework? What are the things you need to consider, right? What's
Mm-hmm.
the upside, downside? What metrics would you see?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one type of question. I think the other type is more like debugging, right? Metric debugging, right? Let's say DAU dropped by 20% for a certain app. How
Mm-hmm.
would you go about like figuring out what went wrong? So
Correct.
here the key is like understanding holistically how you would look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the trend of that dip, like is it over a gradual period of time? Is it all of a sudden? Is it based on
Mm-hmm.
certain device, certain region? And then is analyzing internal factor, external factor based on the hints that an interviewer might give you. So again, this it's just an idea to showcase how in-depth your product, how rigorous your product thinking is across like how you navigate different issues. And then I think the last type is also tied into behavioral question, which is around execution. So sometimes they might ask you like, hey, tell me a time where you have conflicts with engineers and designers. How do you resolve it, right? Tell me a time where, you know, you only have resources to do, you know, X number of work, but you need like Y number of work to ship an MVP. So what do you do? So like more hypothetical scenarios or trying to like draw reference from your former experience. For first-time PMs, if you didn't actually have those experience, I would say either you go, you know, get some of those experience through internship or building your own product, or you have to understand a framework and talk about what are some principles you would apply. And then if there's any relevant work experience in those regard, where, you know, you have basically conflicting opinions from stakeholders and how did you navigate that and bring to a conclusion. That's the same thing as if you were to work with engineering and design. They have different perspectives, and how do you like unify them, right? And coming about to an agreement.
Yeah, that is so accurate. So I think it goes all the interviews that I have given so far. It goes all the basic questions out of it. May it be product thinking, or is it RCA based questions, or your strategies, or product design. I think it has been the case with me as well. Within these rounds, there could be like they could be clubbed together, or they might be a separate rounds on specific issues. But more or less, it covers the majority base of the questions that are asked in product interviews. And I think this has been the trend that now people are moving into this direction. The interviews are more focused on the behavioral round as well. So what if you can, they give you hypothetical situations and ask about what would you do as a person. And they are also like a good to have to practice and get their thinking, because I have seen people who are very good at product sense and product thinking, but they somehow miss on it because they have not even like experienced those scenarios, or they have not even thought of those scenarios, that what happens if this kind of situation occurs, what would I do. So yeah, I think it would be good to like find some resources and read about it and get your thinking aligned on it.
Exactly.
Cool. So I think my another question on the PM part would be around how a typical day for a PM might differ from working at a startup or at an MNC. If you can draw some parallels there, what basically differs in the job role, and what should be the correct expectations if you are working at a startup or at an MNC.
Yeah, definitely. And I have another post on that as well. I can talk about startups and big tech or like bigger companies. I also think that there's like a middle layer, which is actually a really good sweet spot. Those are the pre-IPO, like unicorn, hyper growth company. They are kind of like, you know, still technically a startup, but they have a lot more resources and funding to be also kind of like a bigger company. So they're kind of in that in-between state.
Certainly.
But just for two extreme of like comparing how startups works versus a big tech, I think startups, you know, have like just much quicker cycle in terms of shipping and like operational scrappiness, right? They can get some feature out really quickly, maybe in a day or two or a week. Might ship like hundreds of features a quarter, versus in a big company, you might ship maybe 10 features, like smaller features a quarter across the team of like 15 PM or something. That might be considered pretty good, versus like you'll get a lot more high velocity for you know, a smaller company. I think there's just a lot more like uncertainty as well. Like it's high risk, high return in a startup. So you're a lot more emotionally invested. You have a lot of direct responsibility. You might not need to like sync with 15 different people to make a decision. You might be able to just talk to like 3 or 5 people and then just like, let's go and do it. And you're more, because you have so much more direct responsibility, you might feel like you're more emotionally vested as well. So when the company is doing well, you feel like a lot more happier. You have higher highs, but then when the company is not doing well, you also have lower lows, right?
Correct.
So you really need this kind of people that have like the owner mentality that I talked about, right? And a good intuition to just like be very resilient, diving in, jack of all trades, and like a very healthy dose of optimism as well. Because startup can be very competitive, mental health could be a big issue that gets talked about, but certain people really thrive in that environment, right?
Right.
And then so in the contrast, for a big company, it's just a lot more stable and consistent because you have a core business that's kind of like your cash cows that's making a lot of money, right?
Exactly.
And so instead of making quick decisions, like snappy decisions, you might need to talk to a lot of people to get alignment, to take things, to make decisions, to make it right so that it minimizes the risk, right? So things take a little bit longer to take off. You might have layers of management that you want to go through, not as flat as like in a smaller startup. And so you have a lot of cross-functional alignment that you need to drive, a lot of team playing a different role. So it's more about doing really well in your specialized roles and rallying people, less than like a jack of all trades where you have to do everything in a startup, right? So people who tend to thrive really well in big tech are like a team player, right? You basically have specialized knowledge, but you can also gel really well. You can influence, drive alignment and outcomes across. So it's pretty different environment. And I think a piece of career advice that I heard before, I've yet to execute it myself, and at some point I'm hoping to, is to have experience at different stages so that you actually know which one fits you better and you kind of know how they operate as well and take the best part. I also think that the middle ones, those unicorns and hyper growth, is actually pretty neat as well because they kind of have some level of stability. They're in a rapid growth stage. So you're learning about how to like scale things. There's a level of excitement and craziness all in one, right? So I think that's also another sweet spot for some people when you have like the big company knowledge, but like didn't want to be in a rocket ship as much as, a startup, then I think a pre-IPO one could be a good one. And then the return, like how much you're going to get, like the upside, is also shortened than a startup where you start from probably many years from you're able to pay out or liquidate from an IPO or a acquisition perspective.
Yeah, certainly that is true. And I am one of the few lucky ones who is working at this middle layer one. I am working at this sweet spot startup. We are in the pre-IPO phase, but we are growing exponentially, like covering the 50% of the market share of India. So we are at that stage, and I think the differences you mentioned are correctly defined for a MNC and startup. Like if you are more into fast-paced environment, if you are into shipping products very quickly, shipping out for the users. But if you are at a scale at MNC level, you have to take care of a lot of things, a lot of cross pods working. You have to get approvals at the highest stage as well. It takes time, and also since you are at the scale, any change that you make might affect millions of users. So you have to also take that into consideration, that you cannot flip it day in day out. Anything you will do will make noise around the industry as well. So that's the part. Yeah. And another extension that I have felt about it in startup, one thing adds to your charter is you are also defining what is the job of PM. You are more on the defensive side of it. This is a part of a PM role and something like that. But on the MNC side of it, it's more clearly defined. It's a well-established role, and you are not defending your PM role, but you are already working on it. But in startup, you are mostly defining those boundaries that this is what a PM does, and this is under my charter, or this is like the charter of the other person.
I think that's a good call out, especially in smaller startup when they hire like the first or the second PM. I think it's even harder because prior to that point, the founder might have been playing that PM role. So like your relationship as a PM head or first hire PM or like an early PM in that company could
Mm-hmm.
get very intricate, like with the CEO and how
Right.
you can, or the founder, right? So how you have a good relationship with the
Mm-hmm.
founder, I think matters a lot.
Right.
So yeah, very, very interesting challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But as a growth part of it, I think any place would be fun to be and growth if growth oriented. Every day is a learning for me as well. And I have seen PMs at different companies at different stages of their life, and they are working at phenomenal level. So in my company itself, I have seen products that are at 0 to 1 stage, and that are and I'm working at a product which is at 10 to 100 stage. But we both are having a tremendous growth every day. We are having things that are working at a different pace, but learnings are so much there. So in a day, if you get to experience both startups and MNC, that's the best you can have it, because then only you can decide and make a decision for yourself that which one suits best for you. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So yeah, moving forward, I have some questions that are more aligned with you and not with product manager in general. So if you can share more details around what kind of research or what kind of learning or thinking goes beyond, or about the wonderful posts that you create on LinkedIn, the ideology behind it. And I'm sure there are like tons of followers and tons of fans that are daily appreciating those posts for the learnings. But yeah, I think if you can share some words, that will be motivational for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny because I maybe I'll summarize it into three key learnings,
Mm-hmm.
or how I come about. I think first, everybody is creator. I believe
Mm-hmm.
everybody has something valuable to share. The mental block that's stopping them from sharing more or putting themselves out there is because they worry about, oh, I might not be comfortable putting it out there. What if I'm being judged by
Mm-hmm.
someone, right? I think the way to overcoming it is first acknowledge everybody has something to share. You are
Mm-hmm.
there to share your knowledge.
Correct.
Judgment and everything else comes second. And to be honest, when I sharing it, I hear mostly encouragement, because the
Mm-hmm.
people who are gonna, because I think in the internet, there's only three kind of people. Once you start sharing it, people
Mm-hmm.
there are your fans, so they'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you. People
Mm-hmm.
who like never read your content, so then why pay attention to them, right? They don't, they're neutral, right?
Right.
They don't read your content, they don't care, and you just shouldn't care about them either. And then people
Mm-hmm.
who didn't like your content, most of the people aren't as mean as like reaching out and say your content sucked, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna ignore it as well, or like, not pay too much attention. And
Correct.
just like a product manager, to make yourself life happy and sane, you should focus on what you can control, not the ones that prioritization, right? Again,
Right.
so if you could reframe yourself as in, I don't want to put myself out there to be judged, to like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to share knowledge and my journey
Mm-hmm.
with others, then you are partnering with a larger force, a force that they are more positive. So may the
Right.
fourth be with you, right? That's number one, I would say. And
Mm-hmm.
also on the side, I also feel like in the longer term, being able to build an audience is a career moat. It's a competitive moat that it's going to get you a lot more door to open, like other open opportunities that you would not
Mm-hmm.
otherwise have. For example, I'm talking to you right now in this interview. Like if I have not posted, you might not know me, I might not know you, our path will
Mm-hmm.
never cross, right?
Correct.
So that's number one. I think everyone is creator. Reframe your mindset. You're here to share knowledge. You're not here to be judged. I think
Right.
the second thing is when I created content, it actually, my motivation, especially for the latest series on transitioning to PM, actually came
Mm-hmm.
from my experience firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
First, I went through that process. It was painful, but it's like any growth journey, no
Mm-hmm.
pain, no gain. So you learn the
Exactly.
most when you experience that too. And then
Mm-hmm.
after that, I feel like I just been asked a lot. I hop on a lot of calls, probably over 100. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
right now I still do a lot. And people ask repeated questions, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is plan? What does your journey looks like? What skills are required?
Mm-hmm.
How do I figure out my path? All of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that just becomes a knowledge base that I feel like I could create leverage by writing them down and then just
Mm-hmm.
point people to it. So that if they
Right.
still have questions, they come to me, and then we will organize a call and talk more in depth. But majority of the case, I would say 90% of the case, people stopped at the level when they see your posts because they understand and they have things to work on, right?
Right.
So I creating leverage for myself by not having to repeat myself so much, and then creating this mentorship at scale has really become sort of my motivation. And then a lot of the research that went into it was actually over the years that it builds up, right? So it wasn't like, oh, I thought about creating this, now I go out and research. It's more like years of knowledge and experience that helps inform. The last piece I would say is I consider content creation has a lot of parallel to product management, if you think about it, because when you're trying to find out what you want to talk about, who you want to talk to, that's the same process as finding product market fit. I call it content audience fit, right? So what do you talk about? I didn't start talking about transitioning into PM. I started with talking about random career topics, and nobody really know me. So like no follower game. That means fail at product market fit or content audience fit, right? And then I started pivoting. And then this is the third time that I'm doing a posting series. So I did a transitioning into PM. That's where a lot of followers, I think over 8,000 at this point in less than 12 weeks came from this series alone. So it's a serious product market fit. That's how you find out. And then every post that I put out, I consider it as an experiment too. I hypothesis I want to test. Obviously, just like how you test a product feature, right? Is it going to go well? And then you're going to test whether the feature provides value, meaning is the content valuable to people. But sometimes it could be the way that the content is written, right? So that's the UX design, for example, for a product. Sometimes it could be as simple as the tagline wasn't attractive enough, so people didn't even click on see more to read it, right? You don't always have all level of data, but you just have to like put yourself in that product mindset to think about it and iterate from using a pretty analytical approach, I would say. Like every time at the first hour mark, the fourth hour mark, at the end of the day, at the end of the week is when I look at my post. What's the impression? How many people liked? How many people react? What was my sort of projected reaction to this post? So case in point, for example, when I share simple topics like what is PM, or a curated list of like, here are the folks you should follow, or here are the things you should read about PM. Those tend to get viral super quick, and like people just love those content. Whereas last week I did a couple posts on behavioral interview, where personally I thought I introduced some pretty well thought out framework that were not obvious in the market. But either because people were not interested in the topic, or because the topic was written in a way that wasn't as interested, or it could be some hidden reason, which is user psychology comes in. You know, when you are fear of your boss might see you liking a job seeking type of content, it might be giving them hints on like, are you looking for a job? So people might be hesitant to react, right? They might read it, but they might not get reaction. So you need to like build that sense around how people interact with your content. Is it by design that they might be hesitant to react, right? All the psychology that goes in and out. I think posting just makes me a better PM in general because of all this like things that goes on, thinking about what to post, how to post, what are the reaction, how do I measure success, where do I take it next, and the rapid sort of experiment cycle. I think it's a great learning experience, and I encourage everybody to get started. You know, just try it out. There's no downside, to be honest. I mean, the upside, the sky is the limit. You might be successful, might not, but you will learn something in the process. Probably can go into your product interview too.
Yeah, I think that makes so sense right now, because this is a common trait that I have seen. Like we as a PM generally draw more parallels to anything out in the world with the product management part, and sometimes I draw to these parallels with anything out there. Some of my day-to-day tasks, some of my activities which are in my personal life. It could be anything. And the thing that you mentioned, like content audience fit,
that is mind blowing for me right now. That is so true, and exactly what makes sense right now, because you have to think about it in such a way. You have to look at the numbers, the impressions that are giving, what are the reactions that you are getting out of it, and you have to curate the post that it has the right tagline that people click on the see more. You have to make sure that the CTA is getting clicked and understanding all those things. And I am all for it. Like, people should start into content creation, because if you have done the right research, if you are the motivations are right, you are spreading that positivity, that education all around you. And at the end of the day, if one comment comes like, thank you for sharing these details, it made my day, or it helped me a lot in this interview, this will like increase your motivation 10x for the next post. It will, you will be there working hard to provide more content. And this has been the case for me as well. I made one video and the other guy was like, this dude, this video was so helpful. That was so helpful for my interviews and everything. And that day I decided, let's go into this stream. I am making this content, and if it is helpful to one people, I want to change life for 100 people out there, 200 people out there, and so on and so forth. Exactly, the sky is the limit there. So everybody should try.
And one thing that I heard, you know that I love making analogies. So one analogy that I heard that really described this process really well, I think it's drawing from personal finance, not so much product management, but just like how, you know, how every month you put in a certain set of money into your retirement account. In the US, we call it 401k,
Right.
but it's how you're doing, we call it in finance dollar cost average, right? So over time it compounds. So the graph goes like this, right? Like at the
Exactly.
beginning, for 10 years, you're not making that much, but then eventually it hits like a certain point, inflection point, you're going to make a lot more money. That's how you build up your wealth for retirement.
Right.
So similarly, when it comes to building your brand, every post you put out is what I call an opportunity magnet. It's an investment in yourself. It's something that could potentially attract a new opportunity in many forms, right? And then over time, you might not see a lot of traction at the beginning, but over time it's going to build up and it will give you a return. So I do think that, I mean, first try it out, see if it's for you. Like some people have a lot of stress in creating. So it might not for you, but I would encourage you to try. And then once you figure out rhythm, then make it a habit and invest in the long term. I don't think that just by creating content for a day or two, a week, or even a month, you know, it's gonna help, you know, help you sustain that. But start small, right? Start small, see how it works out. What's the cadence? What are the topics? And then you can start building that habit for the long term.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of patience, just like any other work, that you have to be patient and consistent enough, trying to put out the post and do your part of it, give you 100% into it. And over time, when the right thing will strike, you will see the immense result out of it, and the ROI will be significant. And it's the same 80-20 rule. You will like your 20% of post will give you the 80% of results out there someday, and will be that point where you will become viral. Like, there are very rare cases that you will become viral overnight, but if you are consistent and patient enough, you will see the results over time. And I think
Yeah,
that's the right.
exactly. I also think that overnight success is definitely rare. It's more like an exception, right? What you
Correct.
perceive how could have been an overnight success might have been years in the building, and then all of a sudden it hits that inflection point.
Correct.
So I think, yeah, I trusting in small actions, doing it consistently over a period of time.
Right. Yeah. An extension to that, my question would be around like, like, how important is upskilling or networking for a person's personal growth or professional growth, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, definitely. I think upskilling is very important because in the modern world, like technology keeps changing. There's always new things that come out. So in order not for your skill set to be obsolete, I think it's absolutely critical to be a lifelong learner. And to be honest, I don't like this, like we graduated college for a 4-year education and that's kind of the end. I think that's the beginning of your learning journey, because 80% of what you learn in college, you're going to give back to your professor anyway. What you actually learn on the job is actually what's more important. So I do think that being intentionally upskilling is very important. Early in your career, you can upskill in any domain you want, just like how to get the sense, a taste of the water. As you move up the rank, I think it's more better that you intentionally upskill in certain areas that you think will pay off the strategic bets. So again, about 80-20, thinking about ROI, thinking about prioritization. I think networking is also very important. I think the way how, again, it's easier said than done, so I don't think I'm at that stage yet. But in terms of networking, I think it's also smart to have specific type of group of people that you tend to network with, right? You want to have mentors who can help you grow both within the company and outside. You want to network with sponsors, ideally within your company, so that it put forward your case for promotion or bigger opportunities. You want to network with industry folks outside, so that there's better opportunity for you. Maybe if one day you want to become an entrepreneur, they can introduce clientele to you. You want to help others by being a mentor to your mentee, so that you kind of pay it forward. And then so it's basically a circles of different groups of people that you can network. So I wouldn't say you just blindly go and network. I think it's better that you kind of network with purpose by grouping different type of people together. And then another type of network is almost what I call like life exploration or testing your hypothesis, right? A lot of people might stumble in one career and decided they didn't like it, and they're trying to look for what's next. Or you might already be in a PM, and then you're like figuring out what's next in my PM career. Is it to become, a senior PM, group PM, principal PM, or whatnot, or like start my own thing, or doing something else? So in that case, networking could also be like a rapid test for life exploration. You could talk to people who make a similar transition that you aspire, and then learn from them. Or you could talk to target prospect customer, maybe you're interested in serving, and see if they are actually facing the challenge that you think that they're facing, and validating your hypothesis. So your networking could come in with different purpose, right? Whether it's for mentorship, to be mentor or mentor others. It could be for sponsorship, for better opportunity, promotion. It could be for what's next to come, job opportunity wise, or starting your own thing, or target customer, or people like mentors again. But like, I think the thing with mentorship is that you go out asking people for a specific question. You don't just ask them to be your mentor, right? You just come up with questions to ask them, and then get their experience. And so that's how I would think about how those things will play in as you grow in your career.
I think that is so beautifully put into us, the structure. There are people out there, they just understand the word networking and start sending out random LinkedIn requests just for the sake of networking and gaining those connections. But there should be an underlying purpose to it. You are connecting with the person with the feel that they are going to enrich your feed, enrich your knowledge base, and at the end of the day, enhance your circle, enhance your perception in some way. For example, I follow more PMs so that I get to see their perception, whatever work they are doing. If they are transitioning into something like a startup, or if they are working in some direction, that will be helpful for me. And I think it makes a lot of sense that you should have that purpose in life while networking with other folks, and to have a different set of groups out there which are like enhancing your skill sets in that direction. So beautifully put it. Yeah. With
Thank
this
you.
we come to the end of this video podcast. I hope everybody liked it. Thank you so much, Shivi, for coming in and sharing your thoughts on it. And I am so enlightened right now. I am feeling so much knowledge has been gained in this 1 hour. I hope people get that. And I will try to put all the links in description below to connect to you, to reach out, and to also look at your posts, so that all the learnings can be shared, resource and everything. If you have any last words to say.
No, this is great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really glad to share my knowledge so far. And yeah, I'll share all the relevant links. Feel free to check them out, or connect with me on LinkedIn if you have more questions.
Yeah, and a super recommendation. You can follow her post for every kind of details. if you are moving into product management, I'm sure these are the wonderful posts that you can find that will be helpful here in your career at any point of life. I am still referring to her post and learning day by day. So kudos to that, and I hope we get a lot of these posts and see you. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye.
You. Bye.
So folks, with this we come to the end of part 2 of this video. I hope you have all enjoyed it and gained a lot of information from her wonderful story. How you can break into product management from consultancy background, how you can achieve everything, and how it requires a lot of hustle and a lot of patience at the same time, and how you can also start your journey into the content creation space, how it has been a very good work, a very good thing to take on. And we can understand like why it is important, the upskilling part of it, the growth part of it, and how to have stability in life during this pandemic times. So with this I end the video, and I hope you all liked it, and please share it among your friends who are interested in these kinds of videos, and subscribe to my channel for more such amazing videos that are planned on this channel. So see you in the next video. Bye bye. So guys, what is Newton School? Newton School एक edtech startup है जहाँ पे you can learn more about different technologies out there. They will help you get job offers from these top tech companies, एंड उनका एक बहुत ही अच्छा प्रोग्राम है जहाँ पे आपको ₹1 भी पे नहीं करना है जब तक आपके इन कंपनीज में जॉब नहीं लग जाता. दे हैव वेरी गुड ऑफरिंग्स विद दिस कोर्स, लाइव क्लासेस, इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोजेक्ट्स, मॉक इंटरव्यूज एंड पर्सनल मेंटरिंग. I will put the link in the description, and I suggest you all to check this out and explore their courses.